So at today's session, we're going to extend that conversation into exploring the unique role that Bhagavad Gita plays in the Hindu tradition. And that'll be covered by Gaurav Rastogi ji and Ashwini Surpur ji. Gaurav ji is a interfaith Hindu leader. He's a dhyana meditation and a yoga teacher. He's founder of the Living Deeply Foundation, which really explores a lot of the meditation principles. And he's the author of 2 business books and also 1 ebook on meditation, and also has a continuing blog on meditation, a podcast. Ashwini ji is executive director at Yoga Bharati, and there they focus a lot on yoga, and specifically they offer holistic yoga that combines traditional knowledge with evidence-based practices. And understand they have something very unique planned for today, so we're looking forward to it. With that, Guruji.
Thank you. We'll begin with the opening prayer. So please sit up straight. Sit with your back straight. Please close your eyes. Back, neck and head in a straight line. Relaxing the expression on the face. Relaxing the shoulders. Relaxing the belly. Draw your attention to your breath. Bring the palms together in Namaskar Mudra. Pressing the palms together gently and gently touching the back of the thumbs into your chest. We're going to chant Om 3 times and then the opening prayers. Sahana Bhavatu. Exhale completely. Take a deep breath. Inhale. You bring your palms in your lap and blinking, open your eyes. Namaskar. Welcome to today's session on the Bhagavad Gita, and we're going to be doing what I'm about to show you on the next slide today. We're not going to go too deep into the Gita. That's not our objective. Both Ashwini ji and I will talk about the Gita and its impact on society and its unique position in Hindu society. As counselors, you'll be relying a lot on the Bhagavad Gita for comfort, solace, direction, clarity. All of these are ways in which world leaders throughout history have used the Gita for their own purposes, as well as for the betterment of society. So that's going to be our driver today. I'm going to turn the camera to myself. And all right, now, with that said, I would say that Anil, whenever you're ready, I can take time, so you can get started. Okay. No, you're about to have some more fun. So this is a quiz. We're going to begin with a quiz, as one does these classes, and you have to identify 2 people on the screen behind me. We'll be talking about the Gita. There are 10 songs about the Gita, so it's called Meta Gita. Of course, these 2 people you already know, so I'm not going to talk about. Those 2 at the bottom, you also know, those no problem. On the next slide, I'm going to show you some people. It gives you a sense of what we're trying to do today. And then we'll dive into the subject. 10 songs, 10 different talks all around the topic of the Gita. But before we enter into the subject, I'd like to introduce you to the wedding dancers. Okay, you have about a few more minutes. Identify a couple of people on the screen. Anil. Okay, you see Anil, right? Okay. Where is the music? Okay, I'm going to play it right here, in which case, just for fun. This is just to get the mood going. Okay, who's the other? You see one more person on this. I don't think you know three people on this. Not able to see. Here's what's going on. There's a glare on the screen. There's a doula right behind. The groom. We don't see that. Oh, you don't see the screen? Yeah, that's a trick question. You don't see the groom. All the wedding party is now essentially has walked around. They're doing the parikrama or whatever. They're trying to get into the barat ghar, and now the wedding party has stopped, and it is only dancing. The job of the groom's friends, these gentlemen in the front, is to dance. That is me, by the way, on the horse over here. I'm the groom. That's the second person. You don't see him because no one cares about the groom at this point in the wedding. It is not about him. It is about the dancers and them having fun. And their objective is to dance their heart out, but not let the groom get into the wedding hall, because then the dancing is over and other stuff happens. So they're going to dance around the subject until they can get in, and something like that is our objective. We're going to go deep into the Gita in the next few classes, but today's job is to dance around the subject. We're not going to go into the Gita. We're going to stand outside and dance until we are content with the proceedings. So that's our objective. So that's the objective. Don't expect to get too deep inside. We're going to be looking at the Gita from different angles. We'll be looking at the Gita from a very personal angle. We begin at the beginning and we end at the end, as one does. But we're going to travel all the way around and look at the Gita and its impact on society, its impact on politicians, philosophers, world leaders, scientists, but also its impact on individuals in dire circumstances and situations. We're going to be looking at how, these are all my copies of the Gita, I will pass them out. The Gita has been translated, transliterated, commented, and rewritten many times, thousands of times over, in many different languages. And many world leaders have relied on one version or another. And some, I'm sure, like Ashwini and me, have many copies of the Gita, and we have our favorite, and that's just what it is. But as you're looking at the Gita, our objective today is to bring the Gita down from the pedestal up high where it is kept right now, where you never actually open the Gita you might have in the house, if you do, and to actually open the book and engage with it. Not just engage with it, but treat it like a friend and a guide, and treat it as a friend that you can ask important questions to and argue back, as Arjun does with Sri Krishna. He's not just passively taking notes and saying, okay, I'll write it right now and I'll go home and check it out. He is arguing back and forth until he's satisfied, and only when he is satisfied does this dance stop and the war begin. And that's what we're going to be doing with our own copies of the Gita. So I'll pass some of these along. There are exactly 9, so I know who's taken which ones, and I'll take all of them back. But I'll pass them around. You'll see, and we'll talk about this somewhere in the middle. We will take breaks. Each talk is about 15 to 18 minutes. If we go longer, you can tell us to, throw a few notes. That's how it works with wedding parties. You want the song to end, you throw some currency, and they move to the next song. So you know how that works. So we're going to go on to the next thing. All right. Talk number 1, in the field of action. In the field of action. I'm not a trained singer. The Sanskrit I learned in high school was not sufficient to read these books, but I'm going to try to sing it out for you. So please be kind. Do not rewind.
Just
Do not throw currency. Do not throw currency.
Yeah. I'm disclaimed, and I'm just going to sing it. Shuru Dhritarashtra Uvacha Dharma Kshetre Kurukshetre Samaveta Yuyutsavaha Mamaka Pandavaschaiva Kimakurvata Sanjaya. King Dhritarashtra asked of Sanjay, "O Sanjay, what happened on the sacred battlefield of Kurukshetra when my people gathered against the Pandavas, arrayed together to fight, prepared and ready?" So the Gita is situated in the middle of the Mahabharata, in the middle of the war. This is not the beginning of the battle, it's already begun. But now everything has stopped, freeze frame, we're now zooming in on two people and two people alone. Everything else is now in the background. Those are the rules of the battle. If you did not want to start, you didn't have to start until you were ready. And when you were ready, it's do or die. So technically, Arjun could do what he is about to do, which is stop the battle and ask his charioteer, Sri Krishna himself, to kindly take the chariot to the middle of the battlefield and please let me look at the other side. And listening to this in the background is Dhritarashtra, the instigator of the entire war, and he's is this thing on? Kind of, sort of? Or we're on. So Dhritarashtra is watching and listening to all this. Now, if you're ready, I'm going to unleash a whole lot of violence on you. All right. So I'll set the context a little bit more. Last time we got a little bit about Hindu Vidya, about the Upanishads, the Vedas, the Shruti, the Smriti, a lot of beautiful stuff. Now I'd like you to take yourself to the context of the Upanishads. Large fields where home kundas are set up, and there's a lot of yagnas going on. All sorts of interesting people, very learned philosophers, sages are gathered together, and they talk to each other. And someone is scribing, remembering, and noting down the conversations between elite philosophers in a very, very protected and very sacred environment. That is the context of the Upanishads. Remember that as we go to the next slide. All right. I'll go to the 3-minute mark because I find it fun. Right. Someone's about to be beat to pulp. Lot of violence. Two people with boxing gloves. So not as violent, but still. I'm sure you know that's Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson, in his afterlife, became a Buddhist and had a tattoo and did a lot of other fun stuff, came in movies. But someone asked him, so you go into these boxing bouts, what is your plan? How do you get into these bouts? What's your plan to demolish your opposition? And Sage Tyson replies, everyone has a plan until they get hit in the mouth. Everyone has a philosophy. Everyone has a clear view of the world when they're sitting here in an air-conditioned environment or out in the aranya, in the forest. It is very clear what the world is about. When you're sitting in a very clean environment and you're safe and protected and surrounded by friends, and to discuss lofty philosophy, and to attain that degree of clarity that only the sages can. It is very clear. It's very, very easy to do that. But everyone has a philosophy, a strategy, until they get hit in the mouth. Which is to say, all the Shastra, all the Darshana that the Hindu tradition has produced eventually has to meet Mike Tyson and get punched in the mouth. This is two people wearing boxing gloves, prepared for this match. The battle that's about to be unleashed around the Bhagavad Mahabharata at this point is probably hundreds of thousands of more people on each side, with actual arms, not soft gloves. Relatives, friends, brothers-in-law, fathers-in-law, armies of friends on both sides, and they're not here to box each other until the referee raises his hand. They're here to get rid of each other, kill each other, and get out of it, dead or alive, preferably alive. So the amount of violence that is about to be unleashed in the Mahabharata at this point is many millions of times more than what you've just seen in 30 seconds. And what use is a philosophy if it can't stand the test of that sort of violence? And the Bhagavad Gita brings us right into the middle of the battlefield. Because, you see, there are two types of people. There are two types of people. One type, which is curious. And who isn't curious? Right? We're curious about things. These are, idle curiosities. Why is the sky blue? Why are leaves green? Is there a God? Who made me? Why is my name this? What happened before the Big Bang? Very interesting questions, very nice philosophical questions. Questions that seem very meaningful because we're curious about them. Jigyasu, we just want to know. Jigyasu means curious, wants to know. The Upanishads, some of them, one began, Brahma Sutra, right? Athat Brahma Jignasa. And now, therefore, the curiosity about the true nature of the world. Curiosity. You just want to know because you're curious. You want to know. It's interesting. How cool. And that's one kind of philosophy. It's sanctuary philosophy because you're sitting in an aranya. You're in a nice forest. It's all nice around you. You're safe. You're surrounded by friends and intellectual, intelligent people. And you're asking questions about the nature of the universe. Sort of like a TED Talk or World Economic Forum. Very nice and safe. That's Jigyasu. But in the verse that I just chanted, the people surrounding you are Yuyutsu. Yuyutsu means they're interested in fighting. They're gathered around, arrayed together like an army, and they're ready to fight. They're not curious about anything. They're interested in fighting because that's their job. That's what they're here for. Now, you might say, okay, this is interesting. What do I care? I care because the world all around us is interesting when you're curious, but it is not interested in our curiosity. Every day, there's fake news trying to make you angry. There's newspapers. There's the guy on TV trying to make you angry. There's people on the street when you're driving. Everyone seems to be out fighting you. Your family, your friends, the guy, your neighbor, everybody else is out trying to fight you. And so in as a world that is not purified and pure, you're going to have a philosophy which is action-oriented, which allows you to engage in the world. And that's the job of the Bhagavad Gita. That's the place that Bhagavad Gita brings us into. That's the first thing. The next thing is, you could have a theoretical philosophy. Things should be this way. You see all around, and you'll see that there's a big debate between liberal and conservative philosophy in this country and all other countries at this point. Red and blue, this and that, up and down. There is a theoretical philosophy. Things should be this way. Ceteris paribus, as they say in economics. All other things being equal, this must be better than that. But other things are never equal. So what happens is you get a warped, stunted, purified philosophy which only works in your theoretical mind, doesn't work in practice. And what that means is it results in something like Marxism where all men are created equal, except in the real world no men are. So now, like, what's his name who cut people's legs off? Famous philosopher. Anyway, famous philosopher who, to fit data into theories, would cut people's legs off because their legs were longer than the bed. So now people, Marxism, for example, now tries to bring all the high people low and the low people high, and forces an equilibrium where none exists. Because in the theory of Marxism, all people must be created equal. And so theoretical philosophy is a very dangerous thing. Nassim Taleb, he's a famous author. He wrote The Black Swan. He wrote a whole bunch of other interesting books. He calls this class of people, and pardon my French here, intellectual yet idiots. Very smart, very articulate, but completely clueless about the actual functioning of the real world. The real world does not care for your philosophy. But your philosophy must inform your action in the real world. And so that's the place of the Gita. It does not care for how things should be. It cares for how things are. And the philosophy that results from that conversation is actionable. It's meaningful. Now, the other thing I'd say is, when you learn something, it's very, I learned in India and I realized my kids are learning here. We were taught formulas. We were taught physics, mathematics. But in a vacuum, we knew nothing about how they actually worked. Things work. Here they teach it very differently. Even calculus, you draw it and sketch it and then you learn it. Now, why is that interesting? To know if what you've learned is good, it's not enough to remember it. It is important to apply it. Right? Because only in the sharpening of interaction do you actually test the power of what you've learned. Right? And that's exactly what the Gita is doing, which is improving knowledge. And we will see later today, there's a lot of content about how to improve knowledge, how to get self-knowledge, how to get the awareness of the world as such. All of that is there. But it's applied in the context of war, because only in this back and forth exchange can you truly learn understand what you've learned. I used to have a teacher at my B school. He was a 80-year-old Olympian, Shakespearean actor, as well as part of the Indian Banking Association. So very senior guy, had been there, done that. And he would say about the head of the Indian Banking Association at the time, and he does this with Shakespearean flair. I'm no good, but I'll try to say it the way he taught us. He knows a lot, but he understands very little. It's not enough to know a lot. And to understand, you must apply. And the Gita gets us to apply. And that's the reason this is an interesting text for us. Because we're going to apply and we're going to learn in context. All right. Next up, this talk is over. I'm going to call Ashwini to talk about the next piece. I'm cute to sing if you want. You want to sing?
Which one? Dhyana Krishna?
No, this is Sarvopanishad.
Yeah.